Thank you.
Thanks for your interest and for applying. How would you prepare yourself to serve on the local option sales tax committee in a meaningful and knowledgeable role, and what assistance might you need from city staff to accomplish?
Well, I think the first thing I'd want to do is find out what the neighborhood planning associations groups feel should happen with regard to their particular neighborhoods and what they think should happen. I think the other aspect of it that's important is to also determine what resources or sources of funds that can be provided from other sources, governmental, federal, state of Iowa. Because I think one of the biggest things that's facing city council or anybody is trying to leverage the dollars that the sales tax is going to create in the best manner possible. And so I think it's important to recognize what the people want, what their needs are, but also try to leverage through other available resources.
How do you believe that members of this committee can provide value to the community and to the city council?
I think the biggest thing is credibility. It's a process. I think that clearly representation on the committee is important to have people who have been directly affected by the flood and have their participation in there to give credibility to the fact that their interests are also being represented and acknowledged. I think it's also important to have maybe people who are not directly affected by the flood, who have a background in financial, business matters that can also provide credibility as far as the community, and that the funds are being used in the best manner possible. And again, getting back to leveraging and trying to get the most out of the dollars that we have available.
And can you give examples of previous committee work where you've been responsible for compliance with law, interpreting guidelines as a professional?
Yeah, well, basically, I mean, I have a law degree, a master's in tax. I worked for the IRS for 8 years, so I reviewed statute and regulations.
That's why it was hard for me.
Yeah, I know. So, I mean, I deal with statutes and interpretation of laws and regulations all the time. But I think, again, I think it's important to recognize the human side of what these dollars have to mean and how they have to be spent appropriately. Because I think we are affecting people's lives by some of these decisions, and it is important that everybody recognize that we only have a certain amount of resources, and they have to be used to benefit people's lives as much as possible. And so I think that's the biggest thing. Is number crunching is important, but it comes down to reality and trying to make sure that we treat people with respect and try to restore their lives as much as possible with these funds.
Patrick, do you feel like you have a good understanding of what the city did when we changed from a commission form of government to a council city manager?
I believe so. I think that, clearly I think what the commission or the city council now is basically a policy-making board and function, and relying upon the city manager and the staff to basically formulate plans and goals and what the funds are supposed to be done, how they're supposed to be used. I think part of the problem, with what the perception is of the community right now is that maybe people's interests are not necessarily being recognized or their ideas carried out. And I think it's important that the purpose of this committee and the city council is to make sure that everybody's that the expectations are met for these people as much as possible. You can't satisfy everybody, but all you can do is basically try to give them a fair hearing and make sure that they at least perceive that they were heard and that their concerns have been addressed.
And do you have any problems dealing with someone on a committee that comes to that committee with their own personal agendas and doesn't work well within that committee structure? How do you handle that, if at all?
Well, I do. I think that's inappropriate with regard to the committee. I mean, the purpose, I think, of this committee is to provide oversight, to give, relay information to the city council. I think people who come in with a personal agenda, I think that's wrong. I think that they have to be told that. A lot of people have been affected by the flood, and if you come in there with an agenda, that's self-serving and that's inappropriate. I mean, what the city council and the oversight committee or whatever is trying to do is to recognize what is best for the overall community and not, what is best for a particular neighborhood or group. And that's my concern. I think there has to be representation on the committee from all people who are affected by the flood, but I would hope that it's not self-serving in the sense that I'm looking out for what's best for my particular neighborhood. It is what is best for the city, and then in long term, and then also for the individuals, not any particular faction or group.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.